Hello, my amazing learners. Welcome to the English Fluency Teacher channel. Today, I want to share something with you that will absolutely change the way you approach learning English. I want you to listen carefully because what I'm about to say could completely transform your journey from struggling to speaking confidently and fluently. Let me tell you something right now. English is not impossible. It's not as difficult as you think. Yes, you can speak English fluently, and I promise you, you can do it much faster than you imagine. I know that many of you feel nervous when it's time to speak. I know some of you hesitate. You get stuck or worse. You don't even try because you're afraid of making mistakes. Maybe you've been learning English for years and still feel like you can't speak as well as you'd like. You know the words. You understand the grammar when you read. But when it's time to speak, your mind freezes. I understand you completely because I've been there. Learning a new language is not easy. I know how it feels to want to speak, but not have the right words. I know the frustration when you hear people speak so fast and you can't understand them. But today, my friends, I want to tell you something that will ease your struggles. You don't have to struggle anymore. You don't have to feel stuck, afraid, or overwhelmed because today I'm going to teach you how to learn English in the easiest, most natural way. I want you to think of English as something you are going to live rather than something you are going to simply study. English is not something that should be confined to grammar books, vocabulary lists, or classroom lectures. It should be something that you hear, think in, and speak every single day. You can do this. Let's start with your mindset. Step 1. Believe that English is easy. The first and most important thing is to change your mindset. If you believe that English is difficult, your brain will keep resisting it. But if you believe that English is easy, your brain will start to embrace it. Let me tell you something. Mistakes are part of the process. Do you remember when you learned to walk as a child? You fell down so many times. But did you stop trying? No. You kept going and eventually walking became second nature. This is how learning English works. Don't focus on being perfect. Focus on practicing. If you are not making mistakes, you are not learning. I want you to say this with me. English is easy. I can speak English. I am learning every day. Say it out loud. Repeat it. Believe it. And you will start to notice a shift in how your brain processes English. Your confidence will begin to grow, and you will find yourself becoming more comfortable with a language. Changing your mindset is the first step, and it's a powerful one. Once you believe that English is easy, you'll start to see that the learning process itself becomes easier. The human brain is remarkably adaptable. And when you approach learning with a positive attitude, you create neural pathways that make language acquisition more efficient. Scientific research has shown that learners who maintain a positive mindset about language learning consistently outperform those who approach it with fear or doubt. Your beliefs about your ability to learn directly impact your actual ability to learn. When you tell yourself that English is difficult, you're essentially programming your brain to find evidence to support that belief. But when you shift your perspective and affirm that English is accessible and learnable, your brain begins to notice patterns, connections, and opportunities for improvement that were always there but previously overlooked. This psychological shift is not just motivational fluff. It's based on solid neuroscience. When we approach learning with confidence and enthusiasm, our brains release chemicals like dopamine and serotonin that enhance memory formation and recall. Conversely, stress and anxiety trigger the release of cortisol, which impairs memory and makes learning more difficult. So by simply changing your internal dialogue about English learning, you're literally changing your brain chemistry in ways that support faster, more effective learning. Remember that every expert was once a beginner. Every native English speaker you admire went through a process of learning their language, making countless mistakes along the way. The difference is that they did it naturally as children, without the self-consciousness that often plagues adult learners. But as an adult, you have advantages that children don't have: analytical thinking skills, life experience to draw connections, and the ability to understand grammar rules consciously. Use these advantages to your benefit rather than seeing your adult status as a disadvantage. Step 2. Surround yourself with English. Now that your mindset is aligned, let's dive into step 2. Surround yourself with English every day. Many people believe that in order to speak fluently, you have to live in an English-speaking country. But that's a myth. You can create an English-speaking environment wherever you are. Let's break this down. You don't need to go to an English-speaking country. You don't need to be constantly surrounded by native speakers. And you don't even need to take expensive classes. You simply need to start incorporating English into your daily routine. Here's what you can do. Change your phone's language to English. Every time you check your phone, you'll be reading in English. Whether you're checking messages, looking at social media, or reading notifications, your brain will start getting comfortable with English. Start thinking in English right now. You think in your native language and then translate it into English. This makes speaking slow and awkward. Instead, start thinking in English. It could be as simple as thinking, I am getting up. I am brushing my teeth. Or, I need to go to the supermarket. Start with small thoughts, and before you know it, your brain will begin thinking in English without needing to translate. Talk to yourself in English. Yes, you heard that right. Talk to yourself. Stand in front of a mirror and have simple conversations. This is one of the best ways to practice without the fear of being judged. You can ask yourself questions and answer them aloud. This will also help you with your speaking and pronunciation. Imagine yourself talking to someone. If you were in a conversation with a friend, how would you respond? Practice this every day. Label everything in your house in English. Take small pieces of paper, write the English names of objects, and stick them around your house. Every time you see something, say the word out loud. This will make English feel like part of your daily life. For example, when you see the refrigerator, say out loud, "This is a refrigerator. I keep food inside it." When you see a book, say, "This is a book. I am reading this book today." These small changes in your environment will help immerse you in the language. Creating an English-rich environment is about more than just exposure. It's about creating meaningful interactions with the language throughout your day. Consider transforming your media consumption habits entirely. Instead of watching movies or TV shows in your native language with English subtitles, try the reverse. Watch English content with English subtitles, then gradually remove the subtitles altogether. This progressive approach helps train your ear to recognize English sounds and rhythms, while still providing visual support when needed. Choose content that matches your current level and interests. If you're a beginner, start with children's shows or educational content where the language is simpler and clearer. As you advance, move to comedy shows, dramas, and documentaries. The key is consistency and engagement rather than perfection and understanding. Music is another powerful tool for language immersion. Listen to English songs and try to understand the lyrics. Sing along even if your pronunciation isn't perfect. Music helps with rhythm, intonation, and memorization. Create playlists of English songs that you enjoy and listen to them during your commute, while exercising, or during downtime. The repetitive nature of songs helps embed vocabulary and sentence structures in your memory naturally. Don't worry about understanding every word immediately. Focus on enjoying the music while your brain absorbs the language patterns. Reading material should also be integrated into your daily routine. Start your day by reading English news headlines. Even if you only understand the basics, follow English social media accounts related to your interests or hobbies. Read product descriptions, instruction manuals, and signs in English when possible. The goal is to make English reading a natural part of your daily information consumption, rather than a separate study activity. Even spending 5 minutes reading English content each morning can significantly impact your vocabulary and reading comprehension over time. Consider changing your internal monologue gradually. Instead of thinking about your entire day in your native language, start with specific activities. When you're cooking, think in English about what you're doing. I'm chopping onions. The pan is getting hot. I need to add oil. When you're walking, describe your surroundings. The sky is cloudy today. There are many people on the street. I'm walking to the store. This practice helps you develop the automatic language patterns necessary for fluent speaking. The more you think in English, the less translation time you'll need when speaking, which leads to more natural and confident communication. Step 3. Stop worrying about grammar. Let's address one of the most common barriers to speaking: grammar. Many people believe that they need to learn perfect grammar before they start speaking. Let me tell you, this is a huge mistake. If you focus too much on grammar, you will always be afraid of making mistakes. And if you are afraid of making mistakes, you will never speak confidently. Think about it. When children learn to speak their native language, they don't memorize grammar rules first. They listen to their parents, repeat words, and eventually start forming sentences. That's exactly how you should learn. Forget about being perfect. Focus on learning to speak first and worry about perfect grammar later. Start with simple sentences like, I am eating. She is going to the market. They are playing football. These simple sentences will help you understand how English works, and before long you'll find yourself using more complex structures naturally. The key is repetition. Keep saying these sentences until they become second nature. Grammar perfectionism is one of the biggest obstacles that intermediate learners face, and it often stems from traditional teaching methods that prioritize accuracy over communication. While grammar is certainly important for clear communication, an obsession with grammatical perfection can paralyze your speaking ability and prevent you from developing fluency. The truth is that communication is more about conveying meaning than following every grammatical rule perfectly. Native speakers make grammatical errors all the time in casual conversation, and yet they communicate effectively because their focus is on sharing ideas rather than demonstrating grammatical knowledge. Understanding grammar should be viewed as a tool to support your communication, not as a prerequisite for it. Think of grammar as the skeleton of the language. It provides structure and support, but the muscle, skin, and personality come from vocabulary, expressions, and natural speech patterns that you develop through practice and exposure. When you're just starting to speak, focus on getting your message across. If someone understands what you're trying to say, you've succeeded in communication. Even if your grammar isn't perfect, consider how children acquire their first language. They start with single words like mama and water, then progress to two-word combinations like want water or go outside. Gradually, they build longer and more complex sentences. But this happens naturally through exposure and practice, not through studying grammar rules. As an adult learner, you can accelerate this process by consciously exposing yourself to correct English patterns and imitating them. But the fundamental approach should be the same. Prioritize communication over correctness. Grammar rules will naturally internalize themselves as you expose yourself to correct English through reading, listening, and speaking practice. When you hear the same sentence structures repeatedly in different contexts, your brain begins to recognize patterns and will naturally start to produce similar structures. This is called implicit learning, and it's far more effective for developing natural fluency than explicit grammar study alone. Explicit grammar study has its place. It can help you understand why certain constructions work and can accelerate your recognition of patterns. But it should supplement, not replace, natural language exposure and practice. Many learners get trapped in what linguists call analysis paralysis, where they know the grammar rules intellectually, but can't apply them quickly enough in real conversation. This happens because they're trying to consciously apply rules in real time instead of developing automatic language patterns. The solution is to practice speaking without worrying about perfect grammar. Focus on expressing your thoughts and feelings clearly, and let grammar accuracy develop gradually through practice and exposure. Remember, the goal of language learning is communication, and effective communication can occur even with imperfect grammar. Step 4. Speak English in your daily life. Now that we've surrounded ourselves with English, it's time to speak it in your daily life. Every action you do can be described in English. The key is to make it natural and part of your routine. When you wake up, brush your teeth, make tea, go for a walk, or even meet friends, you can practice English throughout your day. Let me give you some examples. In the morning, when you wake up, say, "Good morning. I feel great today." In the kitchen, when you're making breakfast, say, "I'm making tea. This tea smells wonderful." At the market, when you're shopping, you can say, "Excuse me, do you have fresh tomatoes?" Or, "How much is this?" With friends, "Hey, how's it going? Want to hang out today?" Start having simple, everyday conversations. Don't worry if you make mistakes. Just keep speaking. The practice of narrating your daily activities in English serves multiple purposes beyond simple speaking practice. First, it helps you develop the habit of thinking in English, which is crucial for fluent speaking. When you describe your actions in real time, you're forced to access English vocabulary and structures immediately, without the luxury of translation time. This builds the mental agility necessary for natural conversation. Second, daily narration helps you learn and internalize the most practical vocabulary, the words and phrases you actually need for everyday communication. Instead of memorizing abstract vocabulary lists, you're learning language that directly relates to your life and experiences. Start with simple present tense descriptions of your immediate actions, but gradually expand to include your thoughts, feelings, and plans. For example, instead of just saying, "I'm making coffee," you might say, "I'm making coffee because I didn't sleep well last night. I have an important meeting today, so I need the caffeine to help me focus. This coffee smells really good. It reminds me of the cafe I visited last weekend." This expanded narration helps you practice different tenses, express cause and effect, and connect current actions to past experiences and future plans. Don't limit yourself to speaking about routine activities. Practice describing problems you encounter and how you solve them. When you can't find something, say aloud, "Where did I put my keys? Let me check the kitchen counter. No, they're not there. Maybe they're in my jacket pocket." When you're deciding what to wear, voice your thought process. "It's cloudy today, so I might need a jacket. This shirt goes well with these pants. I should wear comfortable shoes because I'll be walking a lot." This type of problem-solving language is essential for real-world communication and helps you develop the ability to think through complex situations in English. Practice emotional expression as well. When something makes you happy, say so. This song makes me feel so good. I love the melody. When you're frustrated, express it. This traffic is really annoying. I hope I'm not late for my appointment. Learning to express emotions in English helps you develop a more authentic voice in the language and prepares you for more meaningful conversations with others. Emotional language is often the bridge between basic functional communication and truly engaging with others in English. Create opportunities for functional English use throughout your day. When you're shopping, practice asking for help, comparing prices, or making requests. When you're using public transportation, practice asking for directions or information. When you're at restaurants, practice ordering food and making special requests. These real-world applications of English help bridge the gap between practice and genuine communication. Even if you're not actually speaking to someone else, the mental practice of preparing for these situations builds confidence and fluency. Step 5. Boost your pronunciation and confidence. Here's one of the most powerful secrets to speaking English fluently. Listen and repeat. When you hear a new sentence, don't just understand it. Say it out loud. Copy the pronunciation. Copy the tone. This will help you sound more natural. Another tip is to speak slowly and clearly. Many people think that speaking fast will make them sound fluent, but it only makes them harder to understand. Speak clearly and people will listen. Also, try recording your voice. Listen to how you sound and compare it to native speakers. This will help you identify areas for improvement. By doing this consistently, you'll notice an improvement in both your pronunciation and confidence. Pronunciation is often the aspect of English learning that causes the most anxiety for learners, but it's also one of the most rewarding to improve. Clear pronunciation not only makes you easier to understand, but also boosts your confidence significantly. When you know that others can understand you easily, you're more willing to speak up and participate in conversations. The key to improving pronunciation is understanding that it's not about sounding exactly like a native speaker. It's about being clear and intelligible. Focus on the sounds that are most crucial for intelligibility. These are often the vowel sounds and the consonant sounds that don't exist in your native language. English has many vowel sounds that can change the meaning of words entirely. For example, the difference between ship and sheep lies entirely in the vowel sound. Practice minimal pairs, words that differ by only one sound, to train your ear and mouth to distinguish and produce these crucial differences. Record yourself saying these word pairs and compare your pronunciation to native speakers. Understanding English rhythm and stress patterns is equally important as individual sound pronunciation. English is a stress-timed language, which means that stressed syllables occur at regular intervals, while unstressed syllables are compressed between them. This creates the characteristic rhythm of English that makes it sound natural. When you master this rhythm, even if your individual sounds aren't perfect, you'll sound much more natural and be easier to understand. Practice with simple sentences first, exaggerating the stress on important words, then gradually make it more natural. Intonation, the rise and fall of your voice, carries meaning in English beyond just the words themselves. Rising intonation at the end of a sentence typically indicates a question, while falling intonation indicates a statement. But intonation also conveys emotion, attitude, and emphasis. Practice reading the same sentence with different emotions: happiness, sadness, excitement, boredom. Notice how your voice changes not just in tone, but in rhythm and stress patterns. This practice helps you develop the expressive range necessary for engaging communication. Use technology to your advantage in pronunciation practice. Many smartphones have speech recognition features that can help you check if your pronunciation is clear enough for a computer to understand. While not perfect, this can give you immediate feedback on your clarity. There are also numerous apps and websites designed specifically for pronunciation practice that provide visual feedback on your speech patterns. However, don't rely solely on technology. Human feedback is invaluable for understanding how you sound to actual listeners. Practice pronunciation in context, not just in isolation. While it's useful to practice individual sounds and words, ultimately you need to be able to maintain good pronunciation while thinking about what you want to say. Practice reading aloud from books, newspapers, or articles. Start slowly, focusing on clear pronunciation, then gradually increase your speed while maintaining clarity. This helps you develop the muscle memory necessary for good pronunciation even when your conscious attention is focused on your message rather than your pronunciation. Step 6. Overcome fear and hesitation. Now, let's talk about fear. Fear is the biggest obstacle, but it's something you can overcome with practice. One simple rule to overcome hesitation: the 3-second rule. When you want to speak, give yourself 3 seconds. Don't think too much, just speak. The more you do this, the more confident you will become. Remember, mistakes are part of learning. Even native speakers make mistakes, so don't worry if you make them too. Fear of speaking English often stems from perfectionism, fear of judgment, and past negative experiences. Understanding the root of your speaking anxiety can help you address it more effectively. Many learners report that their fear is not really about making language mistakes, but about appearing foolish or unintelligent. This fear is compounded by the fact that in your native language, you can express complex thoughts and subtle emotions, while in English you might feel limited to basic expressions. Recognizing that this temporary limitation is normal and temporary can help reduce anxiety. Perfectionism is particularly destructive to language learning because it prevents you from getting the practice you need to improve. The irony is that by trying to avoid mistakes, you actually slow down your progress. Every mistake you make is valuable feedback that helps your brain adjust and improve. Native speakers make mistakes regularly. They stumble over words, forget what they were saying mid-sentence, and sometimes use incorrect grammar. The difference is that they continue speaking despite these errors, and their listeners understand them perfectly. Build confidence gradually by starting with low-stakes speaking situations. Talk to yourself. Record voice messages for yourself. Practice with language learning apps that don't involve real people, or find online conversation partners who are also learning English. These environments allow you to make mistakes without social consequences, helping you build speaking fluency before moving to higher pressure situations. As your confidence grows in these safe spaces, you'll find it easier to speak in more challenging situations. Develop strategies for managing speaking anxiety in real time. Deep breathing before speaking can help calm your nerves. Remind yourself that the goal is communication, not perfection. If you make a mistake, acknowledge it briefly and continue. Most listeners are focused on your message, not your errors. Have a few go-to phrases ready for when you need time to think. Let me think about that for a moment. That's a good question. Or, what I mean to say is, these phrases buy you time to gather your thoughts without awkward silence. Reframe your relationship with mistakes. Instead of seeing them as failures, view them as learning opportunities. When you make a mistake and someone corrects you, thank them genuinely. They've just given you free language instruction. When you notice a mistake yourself, make a mental note or even write it down to practice later. This proactive approach to mistakes transforms them from sources of embarrassment into valuable learning tools. Practice speaking in progressively challenging situations. Start with situations where communication is essential and the stakes are low. Ordering food, asking for directions, making simple purchases. In these situations, the focus is on getting things done rather than perfect language use, which can help reduce performance anxiety. Gradually work up to more social or professional situations as your confidence builds. Step 7. Think in English. Finally, start thinking in English. This is the key to speaking fluently without hesitation. When you think in your native language and then translate to English, you slow down your speech. Instead, train your brain to think in English. Start with simple words. When you wake up in the morning, look around and name the things in English: bed, pillow, window. Gradually move on to simple sentences. I am brushing my teeth. I am eating my breakfast. Or, the weather is nice today. The more you practice thinking in English, the more natural speaking will feel. Thinking in English is perhaps the most challenging but most rewarding aspect of language learning. It represents the difference between mechanical translation and true fluency. When you think in English, you bypass the translation process entirely, allowing for much more natural and rapid speech. This skill develops gradually and requires patience, but there are specific strategies you can use to accelerate the process. Start by designating specific times or activities for English thinking. You might decide that every morning from when you wake up until you have breakfast, you'll try to think in English. Or perhaps you'll think in English while commuting to work. Having specific times helps make this practice more systematic and measurable. During these designated times, don't worry if you can't find the English words for everything you want to think. Just do your best and continue in English. Develop English thinking by starting with concrete, immediate experiences before moving to abstract thoughts. Begin with what you can see, hear, feel, taste, or smell right now. The coffee is hot. The music is loud. My feet are cold. Then progress to immediate actions. I'm walking to the kitchen. I need to call my friend. I should buy groceries today. Abstract thinking, philosophical ideas, complex emotions, hypothetical situations, comes last and develops naturally as your English vocabulary and comfort level increase. Create English internal dialogues about topics that interest you. If you're passionate about sports, spend time thinking about games, players, and strategies in English. If you love cooking, think through recipes and cooking processes in English. Using topics you're genuinely interested in makes the mental effort feel less like work and more like natural exploration of ideas. This also helps you develop specialized vocabulary in areas that matter to you. Practice English self-talk for problem solving and decision making. When you're trying to decide what to wear, where to go for lunch, or how to handle a work situation, walk through your thought process in English. This type of practical thinking helps you develop the language skills needed for real-world communication, while also making English thinking more automatic. I have 3 options. I could take the bus, walk, or ask my friend for a ride. The bus would be cheapest, but might be crowded. Walking would be good exercise, but would take longer. Asking my friend would be convenient, but I don't want to bother them. Don't be discouraged if your English thinking feels slow or limited at first. This is completely normal. Your thinking vocabulary in English will initially be much smaller than in your native language, and that's okay. Focus on building this vocabulary gradually through reading, listening, and speaking practice. As your English vocabulary grows, your ability to think complex thoughts in English will grow as well. The key is consistency. Even 5 minutes of English thinking per day will gradually build this crucial skill. So, my amazing students, you now have everything you need to speak English confidently and fluently. The only thing standing between you and your success is fear and hesitation. But you now know how to overcome both. Remember, English is not difficult. The more you practice, the more you will improve. Never give up. Keep speaking. Keep listening. Keep thinking in English, and soon enough you'll speak English like a pro. Your journey to English fluency is unique, and everyone progresses at their own pace. Some people might see rapid improvement in listening comprehension, while others might find speaking comes more naturally. Some learners excel at reading but struggle with pronunciation, while others have great pronunciation but need more vocabulary. Understanding your individual strengths and challenges can help you tailor your learning approach for maximum effectiveness. Don't compare your progress to others. Instead, focus on your own steady improvement. Consistency is more important than intensity when it comes to language learning. Studying English for 30 minutes every day is much more effective than studying for 3.5 hours once a week. Language learning is like physical exercise. Regular practice builds strength and endurance, while sporadic intense sessions often lead to burnout without significant improvement. Create a sustainable daily routine that includes multiple English activities. A few minutes of reading, some listening practice, vocabulary review, and speaking practice. Even 10 minutes a day of consistent practice will yield better results than irregular longer sessions. Set realistic and measurable goals for your English learning journey. Instead of vague goals like improve my English, set specific targets like have a 5-minute conversation with a native speaker, read a news article without looking up more than 5 words, or understand a TV show episode without subtitles. These concrete goals give you clear targets to work toward and measurable ways to track your progress. Celebrate these small victories along the way. They add up to significant improvement over time. Find ways to make English learning enjoyable and personally meaningful. If you love music, incorporate English songs into your learning. If you're interested in cooking, watch English cooking shows and read recipes in English. If you enjoy sports, follow English language sports news and commentary. When language learning connects to your personal interests and passions, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like exploring your hobbies in a new language. This emotional connection to the material makes it more memorable and motivating. Build a support system for your English learning journey. This might include family members who encourage your practice, online communities of English learners, local conversation groups, or teachers and tutors who provide guidance and feedback. Having people who understand your goals and challenges makes the journey less lonely and more sustainable. Don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it, and offer support to other learners when you can. Teaching others is often the best way to solidify your own knowledge. Remember that language learning is not just about acquiring new skills. It's about opening doors to new experiences, relationships, and opportunities. Every bit of English you learn expands your ability to connect with people from different cultures, access information and entertainment from around the world, and pursue educational and professional opportunities. Keep this bigger picture in mind when motivation feels low or progress seems slow. You're not just learning grammar rules and vocabulary lists. You're developing a skill that will enrich your life in countless ways. Now, let's talk about something incredibly important when it comes to speaking English fluently: pronunciation. If you want to speak English confidently and sound more natural, improving your pronunciation is key. I know that many of you are worried about your accent or how others might perceive your speaking skills. You might feel nervous when speaking because you're concerned about your pronunciation not being clear or accurate. But I want you to know this right now. Pronunciation is not about perfection. It's about being clear, being understood, and most importantly, gaining confidence. I'm going to take you step by step through some powerful techniques that will help you improve your pronunciation and sound more natural when speaking English. These tips are easy to follow, and with consistent practice, you'll notice significant improvement in no time. Step 1. Listen and imitate. The power of listening. One of the most effective ways to improve your pronunciation is to listen to how native speakers pronounce words and sentences. You must actively listen to their intonation, rhythm, and pronunciation patterns. Listening is the foundation of speaking because it trains your brain to recognize and reproduce sounds correctly. Here's what you need to do. Choose a source. Pick a podcast, YouTube video, or TV show with native English speakers. Make sure it's content you enjoy and can easily understand. Listen actively. Focus on how the speaker pronounces each word, and pay attention to the rise and fall of their voice, the speed at which they speak, and how they stress different words. This will help you understand the rhythm of English. Imitate and repeat. After listening to a sentence, pause and repeat it out loud. Try to mimic not only the words, but also the tone, pitch, and rhythm. Repeat this process as many times as needed until you sound more natural. For example, listen to the sentence, "I want to go to the park." Pay attention to how the speaker says "want" and how "to" is pronounced. Repeat it several times until your pronunciation matches. By consistently listening and imitating, you will train your mouth and brain to produce English sounds more naturally. Listening and imitating is one of the best tools you have. The science behind listening and imitation reveals why this method is so effective. When you listen to native speakers, your brain is unconsciously absorbing not just individual sounds, but also the complex patterns of rhythm, stress, and intonation that make English sound natural. This process, called implicit learning, happens below the level of conscious awareness, but is incredibly powerful for developing authentic pronunciation. Research in neurolinguistics shows that the same brain regions activated when we listen to speech are also activated when we speak, which means that intensive listening actually prepares your brain for better production. Choose diverse listening sources to expose yourself to different accents, speaking speeds, and contexts. While it's useful to focus on one accent initially, such as American, British, or Australian English, exposing yourself to variety helps you develop flexibility and understanding. Listen to formal presentations, casual conversations, emotional speeches, and technical explanations. Each context requires slightly different pronunciation patterns, and exposure to this variety makes you a more adaptable speaker. Active listening for pronunciation improvement is different from listening for comprehension. When listening for comprehension, you focus on meaning and understanding the message. When listening for pronunciation, you focus on how sounds are produced, how words flow together, and how emotions and emphasis are conveyed through voice. Practice switching between these two types of listening. First, listen to understand the content. Then listen again specifically to analyze the pronunciation patterns. Use technology to enhance your listening and imitation practice. Many audio and video players allow you to slow down playback speed without distorting the sound. This can be incredibly helpful for catching pronunciation details that pass by too quickly at normal speed. Some language learning apps also provide waveform analysis that shows you visually how native speaker pronunciation differs from your own attempts. While these tools are helpful, remember that the human ear and human feedback are ultimately more important than any technology. Record yourself imitating native speakers and compare the recordings. This practice helps you develop self-awareness about your pronunciation and track your improvement over time. Don't be discouraged if your first attempts sound very different from native speakers. This is normal and expected. Focus on gradual improvement rather than immediate perfection. Notice which sounds and patterns are most challenging for you, and spend extra time practicing those specific elements. Develop a systematic approach to imitation practice. Choose a short audio clip, perhaps 30 seconds to 1 minute long. Listen to it several times for general comprehension. Then listen specifically for pronunciation patterns. Break it down into smaller segments, perhaps individual sentences or even phrases. Practice each segment until you can imitate it reasonably well. Then put the segments back together. This methodical approach ensures that you're not just passively listening, but actively working to improve your pronunciation. Step 2. Speak slowly and clearly. Many learners of English try to speak quickly because they think it will make them sound more fluent. However, this can actually cause your pronunciation to become unclear. Speaking quickly often leads to mispronunciations and makes it harder for people to understand you. The key to improving your pronunciation is to speak slowly and clearly. Don't rush. Focus on each word and its sound. Speaking slowly helps you pronounce words correctly and also gives you time to think about how to form the sounds. Try this. Slow down when you speak, especially when practicing. Focus on pronouncing each sound clearly. Break down difficult words into smaller parts. For example, when you pronounce the word unbelievable, slowly say each syllable and then put them together. Record yourself speaking slowly. Listen back to the recording and check if the words are clear. This exercise helps you spot any mispronunciations. Speaking slowly doesn't mean speaking too slowly like a robot. It just means giving each sound the attention it deserves so you can be clearly understood. The relationship between speed and clarity in speech is often misunderstood by language learners. Many people believe that speaking quickly demonstrates fluency, but actually, clarity is much more important than speed for effective communication. Native speakers would much rather listen to someone who speaks slowly and clearly than someone who speaks quickly, but is difficult to understand. Moreover, when you focus on speaking clearly at a moderate pace, you're actually developing the muscle memory and neural pathways that will eventually allow you to speak more quickly while maintaining clarity. Understanding the mechanics of clear speech can help you develop better pronunciation habits. Clear speech requires proper breath support, precise articulation of consonants, and full pronunciation of vowel sounds. When you speak too quickly, you tend to shortcut these elements, leading to mumbled or unclear speech. By consciously slowing down, you give yourself time to engage all the physical mechanisms of clear speech properly. This includes opening your mouth adequately for vowel sounds, making complete contact for consonant sounds, and using proper breath support for volume and projection. Practice deliberate speech in low-pressure situations first. When you're alone, practice reading aloud slowly and clearly, focusing on every sound. Practice common phrases and sentences that you use frequently, ensuring that each word is crystal clear. This builds the habit of clear speech when the stakes are low, making it easier to maintain clarity in more stressful or important conversations. Gradually increase the complexity of what you're saying while maintaining the same level of clarity. Develop awareness of your natural speaking pace in English versus your native language. Many learners unconsciously try to speak English at the same pace they speak their native language, not realizing that their English vocabulary and grammar skills aren't yet automatic enough to support that speed. Time yourself reading a passage in your native language, then reading an English passage of similar difficulty. The English passage will likely take longer, and that's perfectly normal. Accept this temporary difference and focus on gradual improvement rather than trying to force native-like speed prematurely. Use clear speech as a confidence-building tool. When you know that you're speaking clearly and people can understand you easily, your confidence naturally increases. This confidence then makes you more willing to speak up in conversations, ask questions when you don't understand something, and participate more fully in English-speaking environments. Clear speech also tends to make listeners more patient and engaged, creating a positive feedback loop that encourages more conversation practice. Practice clear speech in various emotional contexts. It's relatively easy to speak clearly when you're calm and focused, but maintaining clarity when you're excited, nervous, angry, or upset is much more challenging. Practice expressing different emotions while maintaining clear pronunciation. Say the same sentence with happiness, sadness, excitement, and frustration, ensuring that your clarity doesn't suffer regardless of the emotional content. This prepares you for real-world conversations where emotions naturally affect speech patterns. Step 3. Focus on problem sounds. English has many sounds that are difficult to pronounce for non-native speakers. These include sounds that don't exist in your native language or sounds that change depending on where the word is stressed. Practice tip. Stick your tongue slightly out between your teeth and blow air gently. Say the words think and this while focusing on the sound, the R sound. In English, the R sound is pronounced differently than in many languages, especially at the beginning or end of a word. To make the English R, pull the tongue back toward the roof of your mouth, and don't let the tip of your tongue touch your teeth. Practice words like red, car, and better. The L and R distinction. For many learners, especially speakers of languages like Japanese or Korean, the L and R sounds can be confusing. For the L sound, put the tip of your tongue on the roof of your mouth behind your upper teeth. For the R sound, pull the tongue back without touching the roof of your mouth. Practice with words like lake and rake. Spend extra time on these sounds and repeat them until they feel more natural. It's important to listen to native speakers and try to imitate how they pronounce these sounds. Understanding why certain sounds are problematic can help you approach them more systematically. Every language has a specific set of sounds, and when you learn a new language, you need to train your mouth, tongue, and vocal cords to produce sounds that may not exist in your native language. This is not just a matter of learning. It's actually physical training, similar to learning a new sport or musical instrument. Your mouth muscles need to develop new movement patterns, and this takes time and deliberate practice. The TH sounds in English, as in think, and this are particularly challenging because they don't exist in most languages. There are actually two different TH sounds: the voiceless TH, as in think, thought, math, and the voiced TH, as in this, that, breathe. For the voiceless TH, you place your tongue between your teeth and blow air out without using your vocal cords. For the voiced TH, you do the same tongue position but add vocal cord vibration. Practice these sounds in isolation first, then in words, then in sentences. The English R sound is complex because it varies significantly between different English accents and because it's produced differently from R sounds in most other languages. In American English, the R is produced by curling the tongue back without touching the roof of the mouth, creating a sort of tunnel shape. The tip of the tongue should not touch anything. In British English, the R is often not pronounced at the end of words or before consonants. Choose one variety to focus on initially, and practice R sounds in different positions. At the beginning of words read, run. In the middle vary, sorry. And at the end car door. Vowel sounds often cause more communication problems than consonant sounds because English has many more vowel sounds than most languages. The difference between ship and sheep, bit and beat, or cup and cop lies entirely in the vowel sound, and mispronouncing these can lead to misunderstandings. Create minimal pair practice lists for vowel sounds that are particularly challenging for speakers of your native language. Practice these pairs repeatedly until you can both hear and produce the differences clearly. Use mirror practice for challenging sounds. Watch your mouth, tongue, and lip movements as you practice difficult sounds. Compare your mouth position to videos of native speakers producing the same sounds. Visual feedback helps you understand the physical aspects of sound production and can accelerate your improvement. Pay attention not just to tongue position, but also to lip rounding, jaw opening, and facial muscle tension. Develop muscle memory for problem sounds through repetitive practice. Just as athletes practice basic movements repeatedly until they become automatic, you need to practice challenging sounds until the correct mouth positions become natural. Set aside time each day specifically for sound practice, focusing on your most problematic sounds. Start with the sounds in isolation, then practice them in common words, then in sentences and conversations. This systematic approach builds the physical coordination necessary for automatic correct pronunciation. Consider the psychological aspects of problem sounds. Some learners develop anxiety around certain sounds because they've received negative feedback or felt embarrassed about mispronunciations. This anxiety can actually make the sounds more difficult to produce correctly. Approach problem sounds with patience and self-compassion. Remind yourself that struggling with certain sounds is completely normal and that improvement comes with practice, not perfection. Step 4. Use tongue twisters. Tongue twisters are an excellent way to improve your pronunciation. They help train your mouth to pronounce difficult combinations of sounds more clearly. The more you practice tongue twisters, the more you will develop control over your pronunciation. Here are a few examples. She sells seashells by the seashore. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Start by saying them slowly and carefully, and then gradually increase your speed as you become more comfortable. You'll notice that your mouth and tongue become more flexible and can handle more complex words and sounds. Tongue twisters are designed to challenge specific aspects of pronunciation and articulation, making them incredibly effective tools for targeted practice. Each tongue twister focuses on particular sound combinations that are difficult to pronounce quickly and accurately. By practicing these challenging combinations, you develop greater control over your articulatory muscles and improve your ability to transition smoothly between different sounds. This enhanced control translates directly to clearer and more confident everyday speech. The progression from slow to fast practice is crucial for maximizing the benefits of tongue twister practice. When you start slowly, you're training your brain and mouth to produce the correct sound sequences accurately. This accuracy must be established before you can increase speed. If you try to go fast too early, you'll likely develop bad habits and reinforce incorrect pronunciation patterns. Think of it like learning to type. You start slowly to learn correct finger placement, then gradually increase speed while maintaining accuracy. Different tongue twisters target different pronunciation challenges. She sells seashells by the seashore focuses on the distinction between S and sh sounds. which can be particularly challenging for speakers of certain languages. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers emphasizes the P sound and requires precise lip coordination. Red leather, yellow leather challenges the L and R distinction that many learners find difficult. Choose tongue twisters that specifically target your pronunciation weak points for maximum benefit. Create your own tongue twisters based on your specific pronunciation challenges. If you struggle with TH sounds, try creating phrases like three thin thieves thought thoughtfully. If vowel distinctions are challenging, work with phrases like the sheep on the ship dipped deep in the sea. Creating your own tongue twisters helps you focus precisely on your individual needs while also engaging your creativity and making practice more enjoyable. Use tongue twisters as warm-up exercises before important speaking situations. Just as singers do vocal warm-ups before performing, you can use tongue twisters to prepare your mouth and brain for clear English pronunciation. Spend 5 minutes practicing tongue twisters before job interviews, presentations, or social events where you'll be speaking English. This practice activates your articulatory muscles and mental focus, leading to clearer speech throughout the event. Practice tongue twisters with different emotions and intonations. Say the same tongue twister as if you're happy, sad, excited, or angry. This practice helps you maintain pronunciation accuracy even when your emotional state changes, which is crucial for real-world communication. It also makes the practice more engaging and helps prevent the mechanical, robotic delivery that sometimes results from repetitive pronunciation practice. Record yourself practicing tongue twisters and analyze your performance. Listen for accuracy first, then clarity, then speed. Notice which specific sounds or sound combinations cause you the most difficulty. Use this analysis to guide your practice priorities. Some learners find it helpful to practice tongue twisters in rhythm or with a metronome, which can help establish consistent timing and flow. Step 5. Practice stress and intonation. English is a stress-timed language, which means that certain syllables are stressed more than others in each word or sentence. The rhythm of the language depends on the stress pattern, and this affects the way you pronounce words. Here's how you can practice stress and intonation. Listen to the word carefully and repeat it several times, stressing the correct syllable. You can also try clapping your hands on the stressed syllable to emphasize the rhythm. Sentence stress and intonation. In sentences, some words are stressed more than others, usually the important content words, nouns, verbs, adjectives, etc. Unstressed words, articles, prepositions, auxiliary verbs are said more quickly and softly. Practice tip. Listen to natural English speakers and notice which words they stress. Repeat sentences and practice stressing the important words while softening the less important ones. For example, I want to go to the store. In this sentence, want and store are stressed and the other words are said quickly and softly. Understanding English stress and intonation patterns is crucial for natural-sounding speech because these elements carry as much meaning as the words themselves. Stress and intonation convey emotions, attitudes, emphasis, and even grammatical information. When these patterns are incorrect, even perfect pronunciation of individual sounds may not result in natural-sounding speech. Moreover, incorrect stress patterns can sometimes change meaning entirely or make speech very difficult to understand, even if every individual sound is pronounced correctly. Word-level stress patterns in English often follow predictable rules, though there are many exceptions. Generally, two-syllable nouns are stressed on the first syllable table, window, picture, while two-syllable verbs are often stressed on the second syllable relax, believe, forget. Longer words often have primary stress on the third syllable from the end photography, university, information. Learning these patterns helps you guess the stress placement in unfamiliar words, though it's always best to check a dictionary when possible. Sentence level stress is more complex because it depends on meaning and context rather than fixed rules. Content words, nouns, main verbs, adjectives. Adverbs typically receive stress, while function words, articles, prepositions, auxiliary verbs, pronouns are usually unstressed. However, this can change based on what information is new, contrastive, or particularly important in the context. For example, in "I didn't say he stole the money," the stress placement completely changes the meaning. "I didn't say he stole the money, someone else said it." "I didn't say he stole the money, someone else stole it." "I didn't say he stole the money, he borrowed it, etc." Practice stress patterns using physical movement and rhythm. Clap, tap, or step on stressed syllables while saying words and sentences. This physical engagement helps internalize the rhythm of English and makes stress patterns more memorable. You can also practice with music, matching English sentences to simple melodies or rhythmic patterns. This musical approach often makes stress patterns feel more natural and automatic. Intonation patterns in English serve multiple functions. They indicate whether something is a statement, question, or exclamation. They show whether a speaker has finished their thought or plans to continue. They convey emotions like surprise, doubt, or certainty. The basic pattern for statements is falling intonation starting high and ending low, while yes/no questions typically have rising intonation starting low and ending high. WH questions who, what, where, when, why, how usually have falling intonation, similar to statements. Practice intonation by exaggerating patterns at first, then gradually making them more natural. Record yourself saying the same sentence as a statement, a yes/no question, and an exclamation, focusing on how your voice moves differently in each case. "You're coming to the party" statement, falling intonation. "You're coming to the party?" Question, rising intonation. "You're coming to the party?" Exclamation, falling intonation with more emphasis. This practice helps you develop conscious control over your intonation patterns. Use shadowing practice for stress and intonation improvement. Choose audio recordings of natural English speech and try to speak along simultaneously, matching not just the words, but also the stress and intonation patterns. This real-time imitation helps train your ear and voice to work together for natural-sounding speech. Start with slower, clearer speech like news broadcasts and gradually work up to faster, more casual conversation styles. Step 6. Record yourself. Finally, record yourself speaking. This is one of the most effective ways to assess and improve your pronunciation. By listening to yourself, you can identify areas that need improvement. Here's how to do it. Record yourself speaking a few sentences. Listen carefully and compare your pronunciation to that of native speakers. Focus on any areas that sound off and practice them until you feel more confident. Self-recording is often uncomfortable for learners because many people dislike hearing their own voice. But it's one of the most valuable tools for pronunciation improvement. When you speak, you hear your voice partially through bone conduction in your skull, which makes it sound different to you than it sounds to others. Recording allows you to hear your voice as others hear it, providing crucial objective feedback about your pronunciation. This external perspective helps you identify pronunciation issues that you might not notice while speaking. Develop a systematic approach to recording practice. Choose specific content to record regularly, perhaps a paragraph from a book, a set of sentences targeting specific sounds, or answers to common conversation questions. Record the same content periodically to track your improvement over time. This longitudinal approach helps you see progress that might not be obvious from day to day, but becomes clear over weeks and months of practice. Create a pronunciation journal where you track recurring issues identified through recording analysis. Note which sounds consistently cause problems, which stress patterns you find difficult, and which types of sentences challenge your fluency. This documentation helps you focus your practice time on the most important areas and prevents you from practicing randomly without clear goals. Review this journal regularly to update your practice priorities as you improve. Use recording practice for different types of speech. Record yourself reading aloud to focus on pronunciation accuracy. Then record spontaneous speech about familiar topics to practice maintaining good pronunciation while thinking about content. Record yourself in different emotional states: happy, frustrated, excited, to practice maintaining clarity across different emotional expressions. This variety prepares you for real-world speaking situations where you need good pronunciation regardless of the context. Compare your recordings not just to native speakers, but also to your own previous recordings. While native speaker models are important for setting targets, comparing your current pronunciation to your past pronunciation helps you recognize and celebrate improvement. This self-comparison is particularly motivating because it shows concrete evidence of progress, which can sustain motivation during challenging periods of language learning. Improving your pronunciation takes time and effort, but I promise you it's worth it. The more you practice, the more natural your pronunciation will become and the more confident you will feel when speaking. Remember, it's not about perfection. It's about being understood and being confident. Keep listening, imitating, and practicing every day. Over time, you will notice huge improvements in your pronunciation and you'll feel much more comfortable speaking English. Pronunciation improvement is a gradual process that requires patience and persistence. Unlike vocabulary or grammar, which can sometimes show rapid improvement, pronunciation involves training your physical speech apparatus, your tongue, lips, jaw, and vocal cords, to move in new ways. This physical training takes time, similar to learning to play a musical instrument or developing athletic skills. Be patient with yourself and focus on steady progress rather than immediate perfection. Remember that good enough pronunciation is often perfectly adequate for effective communication. While it's beneficial to work toward clear, natural-sounding pronunciation, you don't need to sound exactly like a native speaker to communicate successfully in English. Many successful international English speakers maintain slight accents while communicating clearly and confidently. The goal is intelligibility and confidence, not necessarily native-like pronunciation. Celebrate small victories in pronunciation improvement. When you successfully produce a challenging sound, when someone understands you easily, or when you feel more confident speaking, acknowledge these achievements. Pronunciation improvement often happens gradually and can be difficult to notice day by day. So, recognizing and celebrating progress helps maintain motivation and momentum. Consider pronunciation as part of your overall communication skills, rather than an isolated element. Good pronunciation supports effective communication, but it works together with vocabulary, grammar, fluency, and nonverbal communication to create successful interactions. While working on pronunciation, don't neglect these other elements of communication, and remember that slight pronunciation imperfections rarely prevent successful communication when other elements are strong. Now, we are going to dive into one of the most exciting aspects of learning English: vocabulary. Building a strong vocabulary is essential if you want to express yourself more clearly, speak confidently, and truly master the English language. I know many of you feel that learning vocabulary can be overwhelming. There are so many words, and sometimes it feels like no matter how many new words you learn, you still forget them or can't use them in the right context. But don't worry. I'm here to tell you that improving your vocabulary does not have to be difficult. In fact, with the right strategies, you can learn new words quickly and start using them naturally in your speaking and writing. So, let's explore some powerful techniques to help you expand your vocabulary in the most effective and enjoyable way possible. Vocabulary acquisition is fundamentally different from grammar learning or pronunciation practice because it requires not just understanding and recognition, but also active recall and appropriate usage. Each new word you learn exists within complex networks of meaning, connotation, register, and context. Effective vocabulary learning involves understanding not just what a word means, but when to use it, how it relates to other words, and what emotional or social implications it carries. This complexity is what makes vocabulary learning challenging, but also what makes it so rewarding when you begin to use new words naturally and appropriately. The relationship between vocabulary size and communication ability is not linear. Learning your first 1,000 English words makes an enormous difference in your communication ability. The second 1,000 words makes a significant but smaller difference. Each subsequent 1,000 words makes increasingly smaller improvements to your communication ability, though they do add nuance, precision, and sophistication to your expression. This is why it's important to focus on high frequency, useful vocabulary before moving to more specialized or advanced words. Understanding the different types of vocabulary knowledge can help you develop more effective learning strategies. Passive vocabulary consists of words you recognize and understand when you hear or read them, but don't necessarily use in your own speech or writing. Active vocabulary consists of words you can use correctly and confidently in your own communication. Receptive vocabulary is what you can understand in context, while productive vocabulary is what you can generate independently. Most learners have much larger passive than active vocabularies, and developing strategies to move words from passive to active knowledge is crucial for fluent communication. Consider the emotional and motivational aspects of vocabulary learning. Words that connect to your personal interests, experiences, or goals are much easier to remember and use than abstract vocabulary lists. A person interested in cooking will naturally learn and remember food-related vocabulary more easily than someone studying the same words out of obligation. Connecting new vocabulary to your personal life, interests, and goals makes learning more meaningful and sustainable. Step 1. Read every day. The best way to learn new words. The first and most natural way to learn new vocabulary is through reading. Reading exposes you to new words and context, helping you understand how they are used in real-life situations. But let me tell you this. Don't just read to understand the meaning of words. Read actively. Pay attention to unfamiliar words and make sure you understand them. When you come across a new word, don't just skip it. Here's how you can make the most out of reading. Read a variety of materials. Books, articles, blogs, newspapers, even social media posts can all help you expand your vocabulary. Pick materials that interest you so that reading doesn't feel like a chore. Highlight or underline unfamiliar words. If you're reading on paper, highlight the words you don't know. If you're reading digitally, use the built-in features to underline them. Look up the meaning of the word. Use a dictionary to check the meaning, but also check how it's used in context. Many online dictionaries even provide examples of the word in sentences, which is really helpful. Practice writing the new word down. Write a sentence using the word you've learned to reinforce it in your memory. For example, if you come across the word serendipity, which means a happy accident or finding something good without looking for it, write a sentence like this. I found my favorite book by pure serendipity while cleaning the attic. By reading regularly, you'll not only learn new words, but also improve your understanding of how words are used in different contexts. Reading is the most natural and effective way to build vocabulary because it presents words in meaningful contexts rather than isolation. When you encounter a word in a story, article, or conversation, you automatically absorb information about its meaning, its emotional tone, its level of formality, and its relationships with other words. This contextual learning is much more powerful than memorizing definitions from word lists because it creates rich, memorable associations that help with both retention and appropriate usage. The type of reading material you choose significantly impacts the vocabulary you acquire. News articles tend to use formal, current vocabulary related to politics, economics, and social issues. Fiction exposes you to emotional language, dialogue, and descriptive vocabulary. Technical articles introduce specialized terminology and formal academic language. Social media posts feature informal, contemporary language and slang. By diversifying your reading sources, you develop vocabulary appropriate for different situations and registers. Develop strategic reading habits that maximize vocabulary acquisition. When you encounter an unfamiliar word, first try to guess its meaning from context before looking it up. This active engagement helps you develop contextual inference skills that will help you understand new words even when you can't look them up. After guessing, look up the actual definition to confirm or correct your understanding. This two-step process creates stronger memory traces than simply looking up words immediately. Consider the concept of comprehensible input when choosing reading materials. This means selecting texts that are slightly above your current level, challenging enough to introduce new vocabulary and structures, but not so difficult that you're constantly looking up words and losing the flow of meaning. A good rule of thumb is that you should understand about 90 to 95% of what you're reading without help. If you're looking up more than one word per sentence, the material is probably too difficult and may frustrate rather than help you. Create a systematic approach to capturing and reviewing new vocabulary from reading. Keep a vocabulary notebook or digital file where you record new words along with their meanings, the sentence where you found them, and your own example sentence. Review these words regularly. Daily review for the first week, then weekly review, then monthly review. This spaced repetition approach helps move words from short-term to long-term memory and from passive to active vocabulary. Use technology to enhance your reading-based vocabulary learning. Many e-readers and reading apps allow you to tap on unfamiliar words for instant definitions, and some can automatically save these words for later review. Browser extensions can provide definitions for words on websites. However, don't become too dependent on these tools. The act of physically looking up words and writing them down often creates stronger memory associations than digital convenience features. Pay attention to word families and morphology while reading. When you encounter a new word, notice its structure. Does it have recognizable prefixes, suffixes, or root words? For example, if you learn unprecedented, you can connect it to precedent and understand the prefix un and suffix addition. This morphological awareness helps you understand and remember new words more effectively and can help you guess the meanings of other unfamiliar words with similar structures. Step 2. Use flashcards to reinforce your vocabulary. One of the oldest but most effective methods to learn vocabulary is using flashcards. Flashcards help reinforce words and their meanings by engaging your memory in an active way. Here's how to use flashcards effectively. Write the word on one side of the card and its meaning or a sentence on the other side. For example, word, serendipity, meaning a happy accident, finding something good by chance. Sentence, it was pure serendipity that I found the perfect gift for my friend in that small shop. Review your flashcards regularly. Repetition is key to memorizing new vocabulary. Review your cards at least once a day. Use apps like Anki, Quizlet, or even traditional paper flashcards to help you organize your vocabulary learning. Use images. You can even add pictures or symbols to help you remember the meaning of a word more easily. For example, for serendipity, you could add a picture of someone finding a treasure unexpectedly. By consistently using flashcards, you're reinforcing the words in your long-term memory and making sure they stick. Flashcards work because they utilize the psychological principle of active recall, forcing your brain to retrieve information from memory rather than simply recognizing it. This retrieval practice strengthens neural pathways and makes information more accessible in the future. However, the effectiveness of flashcards depends heavily on how you create and use them. Simple word-to-definition cards are less effective than cards that include context, examples, and multiple types of information about each word. Create multi-dimensional flashcards that capture different aspects of vocabulary knowledge. Instead of just word and definition, include pronunciation guidance, part of speech, common collocations words that frequently appear together, and multiple example sentences. For instance, a card for serendipity might include the pronunciation /serendip/, the note that it's a noun, common phrases like pure serendipity or by serendipity, and examples from different contexts. Scientific discoveries, personal relationships, career opportunities. Implement spaced repetition systems for maximum efficiency. Research shows that reviewing information at increasingly longer intervals is more effective than mass practice studying everything every day. Modern flashcard apps like Anki use algorithms to present cards based on how well you know them. Words you find difficult appear more frequently, while words you know well appear less often. This personalized scheduling maximizes learning efficiency and prevents time waste on words you've already mastered. Create different types of flashcard activities to engage various aspects of vocabulary knowledge. Traditional cards might show the word and ask for the definition, but you can also create cards that show a definition and ask for the word, show a sentence with the word missing and ask you to fill it in, or show a word and ask you to use it in an original sentence. This variety prevents rote memorization and promotes flexible, usable knowledge. Use visual and mnemonic techniques to enhance flashcard effectiveness. Adding images helps create visual associations that many people find easier to remember than purely verbal information. Create mental stories or associations that connect new words to things you already know. For serendipity, you might imagine finding a valuable coin in your pocket that you didn't know was there, a serendipitous discovery. These personal, often silly associations can be surprisingly effective memory aids. Track your progress and adjust your flashcard practice based on results. Most flashcard apps provide statistics about your learning, which words you find most difficult, how many new words you're learning per day, what your retention rates are. Use this data to optimize your study sessions. If you're consistently struggling with certain types of words, you might need to change your approach or seek additional practice with those specific patterns. Consider the limitations of flashcards and supplement them with other activities. While flashcards are excellent for building recognition, vocabulary, and basic meaning associations, they're less effective for developing nuanced understanding of word usage, emotional connotations, and contextual appropriateness. Combine flashcard practice with reading, listening, and speaking activities that show you how words function in natural communication. Step 3. Learn words in groups or themes. Another effective strategy is to learn words in groups or related themes. Instead of learning isolated words, grouping them together based on their meaning or context will make it easier to remember them and use them correctly. For example, emotions: happy, sad, angry, frustrated, excited, anxious, joyful. Travel vocabulary: flight, passport, suitcase, destination, luggage, hotel, tour guide. Business vocabulary: meeting, presentation, deadline, negotiation, client, contract, proposal. By learning words in context or related to specific topics, you will be able to recall them more easily and use them in the right situations. Here's how you can start. Pick a theme each week, such as travel, food, or business, and focus on learning 10 to 15 words related to that theme. Create many lists of words you want to learn each week. For example, you could make a list of verbs: run, jump, swim, etsy. Adjectives: beautiful, strong, tall, and nouns: dog, house, computer, etsy. This method will help you build your vocabulary in a practical way and give you the confidence to speak on a variety of topics. Thematic vocabulary learning works because it mirrors how our brains naturally organize and store information. Words aren't stored randomly in our minds. They're connected in networks based on meaning, association, and usage patterns. When you learn words thematically, you're building these natural networks deliberately, making it easier to recall related words when you need them in conversation. If someone asks you about travel, for example, and you've learned travel vocabulary as a group, multiple related words will become accessible simultaneously. Choose themes that are personally relevant and immediately useful to your life and goals. If you work in healthcare, focus on medical vocabulary. If you love sports, learn sports terminology. If you're planning to study abroad, concentrate on academic vocabulary. This personal relevance makes learning more motivating and provides immediate opportunities to practice new words in real contexts. The more personally meaningful the vocabulary theme, the more likely you are to remember and use the words. Understand different types of thematic relationships between words. Some word groups are based on synonyms: happy, joyful, delighted, cheerful. Others on antonyms: hot/cold, big/small, fast/slow. Others on categories: fruits: apple, banana, orange, grape. And others on situational context: restaurant, menu, waiter, order, bill, tip. Each type of relationship creates different kinds of memory connections and serves different communicative purposes. Varying the types of thematic groups you study helps develop flexible vocabulary knowledge. Create hierarchical word maps for complex themes. Start with a broad category like food, then break it down into subcategories: fruits, vegetables, meat, dairy, grains. Under each subcategory, list specific items, then add related verbs, adjectives, and phrases. For fruits, you might include not just apple, banana, orange, but also verbs like peel, slice, juice, and adjectives like ripe, fresh, sweet, sour. This hierarchical approach helps you understand how vocabulary fits together systematically. Practice using thematic vocabulary in context rather than just memorizing lists. Create stories, descriptions, or conversations that incorporate multiple words from the same theme. If you're learning emotion words, write a diary entry describing a day when you felt many different emotions. If you're learning business vocabulary, practice describing a typical workday using as many relevant words as possible. This contextual practice helps you understand how words work together naturally. Use thematic vocabulary as a foundation for productive activities. Once you've learned a set of thematically related words, use them for speaking and writing practice. Describe pictures using vocabulary from specific themes. Have conversations about topics that require thematic vocabulary. Or write short essays incorporating words from your current theme. This productive use helps move vocabulary from passive recognition to active usage. Regularly review and expand thematic word groups. As your overall English level improves, revisit previous themes to add more sophisticated or nuanced vocabulary. Your initial emotion group might start with basic words like happy and sad, but later you can add more specific emotions like elated, melancholy, apprehensive, or euphoric. This spiraling approach continuously deepens your vocabulary knowledge while building on familiar foundations. Step 4. Use new words in sentences. Once you learn a new word, don't just memorize it, use it. The best way to make a word stick is by incorporating it into your speaking and writing. Try using new words in sentences, paragraphs, and conversations. Here's how to do this. Write sentences with new words. Practice using them in different contexts. For example, if you learn the word magnificent, you can write, "The view from the mountaintop was magnificent. She wore a magnificent red dress to the party." Speak with new words. Don't be afraid to try using your new words when you speak. Start with simple sentences and gradually increase the complexity. The more you practice, the more natural it will become. Ask someone to correct you. If you're practicing with a friend or a teacher, ask them to correct your use of new words. This will help you use them properly in future conversations. Using the words you learn in real-life contexts will make them feel more natural and help you remember them for the long term. Active usage transforms passive vocabulary knowledge into productive language skills. When you use a new word in your own sentences, you engage multiple cognitive processes. You must recall the word from memory, understand its meaning and connotations, choose appropriate grammatical structures, and create meaningful context. This multi-layered engagement creates much stronger memory traces than simple recognition or repetition. Moreover, using words in your own contexts creates personal associations that make them more memorable and accessible. Develop a systematic approach to practicing new vocabulary in sentences. For each new word, challenge yourself to create sentences in different grammatical patterns and contexts. If you learn the word reluctant, practice using it as a predicate adjective. She was reluctant to leave. Before a noun, his reluctant agreement. And in different tenses and aspects. I've always been reluctant. She reluctantly agreed. Their reluctance was obvious. This variety helps you understand the word's flexibility and natural usage patterns. Practice using new vocabulary to express your own thoughts and experiences rather than creating artificial example sentences. If you learn the word nostalgic, don't just write, "I feel nostalgic about my childhood." Instead, think about something that actually makes you feel nostalgic and describe that genuine experience. This personal connection makes the vocabulary more meaningful and memorable while also giving you practice expressing authentic thoughts in English. Experiment with different registers and contexts when using new vocabulary. Many words have formal and informal equivalents, and understanding these distinctions is crucial for appropriate usage. The word commence is more formal than start or begin. Practice using new vocabulary in both formal writing and casual conversation contexts to understand these nuances. Write both a formal email and a casual text message using the same new vocabulary to see how context affects word choice. Create progressively longer and more complex productions using new vocabulary. Start with individual sentences, then write paragraphs, then longer pieces that incorporate multiple new words. This progression helps you develop the skills necessary to use new vocabulary in sustained, natural communication rather than just isolated sentences. Challenge yourself to write coherent stories, descriptions, or arguments that naturally incorporate several new words from your current study list. Seek feedback on your vocabulary usage from native speakers or advanced learners. While experimenting with new words is important, getting correction and guidance helps you avoid developing bad habits or inappropriate usage patterns. When possible, ask specifically about register, connotation, and naturalness rather than just grammatical correctness. Is this word too formal for this context? Does this word have the right emotional tone? Would a native speaker say this? Keep a production journal where you track how you're using new vocabulary. Write brief reflections on which words feel natural to use, which ones still feel awkward, and which contexts seem most appropriate for different words. This metacognitive awareness helps you develop better instincts for vocabulary usage and identifies areas where you need more practice or feedback. Step 5. Learn synonyms and antonyms. Another great way to improve your vocabulary is by learning synonyms, words that have the same meaning, and antonyms, words that have the opposite meaning. For example, synonyms for happy will be joyful, content, delighted, cheerful, pleased. Synonyms for sad will be unhappy, sorrowful, gloomy, disappointed, melancholic. Synonyms for big will be huge, large, enormous, gigantic, massive. By learning synonyms and antonyms, you not only expand your vocabulary, but also learn how to use words in different contexts. This will give you more variety when you speak and write. Understanding synonyms and antonyms helps you develop nuanced expression and sophisticated communication skills. While synonyms may have similar meanings, they often carry different emotional tones, levels of formality, or subtle shades of meaning that can dramatically affect your message. For example, happy, joyful, content, and ecstatic are all positive emotions, but they represent different intensities and types of happiness. Content suggests quiet satisfaction. Happy is general positivity. Joyful implies active celebration. And ecstatic represents overwhelming happiness. Understanding these distinctions allows you to choose exactly the right word for your intended meaning. Learning synonyms prevents repetitive speech and writing while adding sophistication to your expression. Instead of saying good repeatedly, you can vary your language with excellent, outstanding, remarkable, impressive, or exceptional. Each of these words, while similar to good, creates a slightly different impression and demonstrates broader vocabulary knowledge. This variety makes your communication more engaging and shows advanced language proficiency. Create synonym scales that show gradations of meaning rather than simple equivalencies. For emotions, you might create scales from mild to intense, Annoyed, frustrated, angry, furious, enraged. For size: tiny, small, medium, large, huge, enormous, gigantic. These scales help you understand not just what words mean, but how they relate to each other in terms of intensity, formality, or specificity. This relational understanding is crucial for choosing appropriate words in different contexts. Understand the concept of connotation when studying synonyms. Words with similar denotative meanings, dictionary definitions, can have very different connotative meanings, emotional or cultural associations. Slim, thin, skinny, and scrawny all refer to someone with little body fat, but they carry increasingly negative connotations. Slim is positive, thin is neutral, skinny is mildly negative, and scrawny is quite negative. Understanding these connotative differences prevents awkward or offensive word choices. Practice using antonyms to express contrast and develop argumentation skills. Antonyms aren't just vocabulary exercises. They're tools for clear thinking and expression. Practice expressing opposing viewpoints, comparing alternatives, or describing changes over time using antonym pairs. The weather changed from hot to cold. His attitude shifted from hostile to friendly. The economy moved from recession to growth. This practice helps you develop the language skills necessary for analysis, comparison, and persuasive communication. Study gradable versus absolute antonyms to understand different types of opposition. Gradable antonyms exist on a continuum hot/warm/cool/cold, while absolute antonyms represent true opposites with no middle ground, alive/dead, married/single. Understanding this distinction helps you use antonyms more precisely and avoid logical errors in communication. You can say somewhat hot or very cold, but you can't say somewhat dead or very married. Use synonym and antonym study to improve your reading comprehension and inferential skills. When you encounter unfamiliar words in reading, try to determine whether they're positive or negative, formal or informal, intense or mild based on context clues and surrounding words. This skill helps you understand texts even when you don't know every word and improves your ability to learn new vocabulary from context. Create word webs or mind maps that show relationships between synonyms, antonyms, and related words. Place a central word in the middle. Surround it with synonyms of different intensities and formalities. Include antonyms, and add related words from the same semantic field. This visual representation helps you understand how words relate to each other and provides a useful review tool for vocabulary study. Practice using synonyms and antonyms in context through substitution exercises. Take a paragraph from a book or article and try replacing keywords with synonyms that maintain the same meaning but change the tone, formality level, or emotional impact. This exercise helps you understand how word choice affects communication and develops your sensitivity to stylistic variation in English. Step 6. Engage in conversations and use new words. The final and most important step is to engage in real conversations. Practice is key when it comes to vocabulary. The more you speak and write in English, the more opportunities you'll have to use the new words you've learned. Start by speaking with friends, teachers, or language partners in English. Even if you make mistakes, it's the practice that counts. Writing short stories or journals using your new words. This can be a fun way to challenge yourself and reflect on your progress. Expanding your vocabulary is not something that happens overnight, but with consistent practice, you'll see significant improvement. The key is to make vocabulary learning a daily habit. By reading, practicing new words in context, and engaging in conversations, you'll be able to expand your vocabulary and speak more naturally and confidently. Remember, don't just memorize words. Use them, play with them, and make them part of your everyday life. You have the power to unlock your English fluency through the words you know. Keep practicing, and soon enough you'll have an amazing vocabulary at your disposal. Real conversation practice is where vocabulary learning becomes vocabulary mastery. All the reading, flashcards, and written exercises in the world cannot substitute for the real-time pressure and spontaneity of actual conversation. When you speak with others, you must access vocabulary quickly, use it appropriately for the social context, and adapt your word choices based on your listeners' responses. This dynamic, interactive use of vocabulary is what transforms studied words into natural, fluent expression. Start conversations with specific vocabulary goals rather than hoping new words will emerge naturally. Before a conversation or social interaction, review recent vocabulary you've been studying and challenge yourself to use specific words appropriately during the interaction. This conscious practice helps bridge the gap between studying vocabulary and using it spontaneously. Don't force unnatural usage, but look for genuine opportunities to incorporate new words into your natural expression. Practice vocabulary in different types of conversations and social situations. Casual conversations with friends require different vocabulary than professional discussions with colleagues or formal presentations to groups. Academic discussions use different language than emotional heart-to-heart talks. By practicing new vocabulary across various social contexts, you develop the sociolinguistic competence necessary for appropriate word choice in different situations. Develop strategies for introducing new vocabulary into conversations naturally. Learn transitional phrases that allow you to use more sophisticated vocabulary without sounding pretentious. The way I see it, from my perspective, to put it another way, what I'm trying to say is, these phrases signal that you're choosing your words carefully and give you space to use more advanced vocabulary appropriately. Use conversation as an opportunity to test your understanding of vocabulary nuances. When you use a new word in conversation, pay attention to your listener's reaction. Do they understand you? Do they seem surprised by your word choice? Do they respond in a way that suggests your word was appropriate or inappropriate for the context? This real-time feedback is invaluable for developing authentic vocabulary usage. Practice explaining and defining vocabulary during conversations. When you use a word that your conversation partner might not know, practice explaining it clearly and naturally. This skill is useful for international communication and also reinforces your own understanding of word meanings. I was feeling quite melancholy yesterday, that sort of gentle sadness that doesn't have a specific cause. Create vocabulary challenges with conversation partners who are also learning English. Agree to focus on specific vocabulary themes during your conversations, or challenge each other to use new words you've recently learned. This mutual support makes vocabulary practice more engaging and provides additional motivation for both partners to expand their word knowledge actively. Don't be discouraged by vocabulary mistakes in conversation. Making errors with new vocabulary is a natural and necessary part of the learning process. When you use a word incorrectly and receive correction, you're getting valuable feedback that helps refine your understanding. Often, these corrected mistakes become some of the most memorable vocabulary lessons because they're connected to real communication experiences. Keep a conversation vocabulary journal where you record new words you heard others use, words you tried to use but weren't sure about, and feedback you received about your vocabulary choices. Review this journal regularly to identify patterns in your vocabulary development and areas where you need additional practice or study. Advanced vocabulary development strategies. As your English vocabulary grows beyond the basic level, you'll need more sophisticated strategies for continued development. Advanced vocabulary learning involves understanding word families, morphology, etymology, register variation, and cultural connotations that go far beyond simple definition memorization. This advanced level of vocabulary knowledge is what separates functional English users from truly fluent speakers who can express nuanced thoughts and emotions with precision and sophistication. Word morphology. Understanding how words are built from roots, prefixes, and suffixes becomes increasingly important at advanced levels. When you understand that being means good benefit, benevolent, beneficial, mal means bad malicious, malfunction, malnutrition, and able means capable of being readable, washable, debatable, you can understand and even guess the meanings of unfamiliar words. This morphological awareness exponentially increases your vocabulary comprehension and helps you learn new words more efficiently. Study etymology, the historical origins of words, to understand deeper meanings and connections. Many English words come from Latin, Greek, French, German, and other languages. And understanding these origins often reveals subtle meanings that aren't apparent from modern definitions alone. For example, knowing that compassion comes from Latin words meaning to suffer with gives you a deeper understanding of the word than simply knowing it means sympathy for others' suffering. Develop awareness of register variation, how the same idea can be expressed with different levels of formality. Advanced speakers can express the same concept using casual, neutral, formal, or highly academic vocabulary depending on the situation. Start casual, begin neutral, commence formal, initiate technical/formal all express similar ideas, but are appropriate for different contexts. This register awareness is crucial for professional and academic success. Learn cultural and historical connotations that affect word usage. Some words carry cultural baggage or historical associations that aren't captured in dictionary definitions. Understanding these connotations helps you avoid misunderstandings and communicate more effectively with native speakers who unconsciously respond to these cultural meanings. Study collocations, words that naturally go together, rather than learning words in isolation. Native speakers say strong coffee, not powerful coffee. Heavy rain, not weighty rain. Make a decision, not do a decision. These natural word partnerships are crucial for native-like expression and can't be learned through logic alone. They must be memorized through exposure and practice. Develop specialized vocabulary for your professional, academic, or personal interests. If you work in technology, learn technical terminology. If you study literature, learn literary criticism vocabulary. If you love sports, learn sports commentary language. This specialized vocabulary allows you to participate more fully in communities and discussions that matter to you personally and professionally. Practice using vocabulary for persuasion, explanation, and analysis rather than just description. Advanced vocabulary usage involves expressing complex relationships between ideas, making sophisticated arguments, and analyzing abstract concepts. Practice using words that show cause and effect consequently. Nevertheless, furthermore, express degrees of certainty presumably, allegedly, undoubtedly, and indicate logical relationships moreover, conversely, specifically, creating a comprehensive learning system. Effective vocabulary learning requires a systematic approach that integrates multiple methods and maintains consistent practice over time. No single technique is sufficient for comprehensive vocabulary development, and the most successful learners combine reading, writing, speaking, listening, and systematic study in a coordinated program that evolves with their developing language skills. Design a weekly vocabulary learning schedule that includes different types of activities each day. Monday might be for learning new words through reading, Tuesday for flashcard review, Wednesday for thematic vocabulary study, Thursday for conversation practice with new words, Friday for writing practice, and weekends for review and assessment. This systematic approach ensures that you engage with vocabulary in multiple ways throughout the week. Set realistic but challenging vocabulary learning goals based on your current level and time availability. Beginning learners might aim to learn 10 to 15 new words per week, while advanced learners might focus on 5 to 7 words, but with deeper understanding of nuances, collocations, and usage patterns. Quality of learning is more important than quantity, especially at higher levels. Create a personal vocabulary database that tracks your progress and organizes your learning. This might be a physical notebook, a digital document, or a specialized app, but it should include not just words and definitions, but also example sentences, personal connections, difficulty ratings, and review schedules. Regularly analyze this database to identify patterns in your learning and areas that need additional attention. Integrate vocabulary learning with your other English skills development. Use new vocabulary in your writing practice. Listen for familiar words in audio materials. Practice pronunciation of challenging vocabulary. And incorporate new words into grammar exercises. This integration helps vocabulary become part of your overall English competence rather than an isolated skill. Regularly assess your vocabulary progress through both formal and informal methods. Take vocabulary tests. Ask for feedback from teachers or conversation partners, and monitor your own confidence and fluency when using new words. Use this assessment information to adjust your learning strategies and focus areas. Build flexibility into your vocabulary learning system to accommodate changing needs and interests. As your English level improves, your vocabulary learning needs will change. Beginning learners need high-frequency basic vocabulary, while advanced learners need specialized, nuanced vocabulary for specific purposes. Regularly evaluate and adjust your vocabulary learning priorities based on your evolving goals and circumstances. Remember that vocabulary learning is a lifelong process, even for native speakers. English vocabulary is fast and constantly evolving, with new words being added and old words changing meanings. Maintain curiosity about language and continue learning new words throughout your English speaking journey. This ongoing development is part of what makes language learning exciting and rewarding. The journey to building a comprehensive English vocabulary is challenging, but immensely rewarding. Every new word you learn opens new possibilities for expression, understanding, and connection with others. With consistent practice, systematic study, and regular use of new vocabulary in real communication, you can develop the rich, flexible vocabulary necessary for confident, fluent English communication. Remember that vocabulary learning is not just about memorizing words. It's about developing the ability to express your thoughts, feelings, and ideas with precision, nuance, and cultural appropriateness. This sophisticated communication skill will serve you well in all areas of your life where English is important.